I want to start with Sean Duffy, Congressman, former Real World, I think is the name of the show. When I was younger, The Real World on MTV, a reality TV show, and participant. I was going to say host, but he's not a host. But anyway, he was on CNN today, and he really showed the depth of America's fixation with Islamic terrorism to the complete dismissal of white terrorism in the United States, which is actually a very real thing. So this is a long clip. I'm going to try to play it in segments because it is that it's that ridiculous. So let's take a look at it and listen to Sean Duffy on CNN this morning. Here we go.
I'm shocked.
Congressman, why isn't the president talking about the white terrorist who mowed down 6 Muslims who were praying at their mosque?
Yeah, I don't know. But I would just tell you, there is a difference. Again, death and murder on both sides is wrong. But if you want to take the dozens of scenarios where ISIS-inspired attacks have taken innocents, and you give me one example of what's happened, I think that was in Canada, I'm going to condemn them all. But again, you don't have a group like ISIS or Al-Qaeda that's inspiring people around the world to take up arms and kill innocents. That was a one-off. That was a one-off, Allison.
Hold on
and you
a
have
second.
a movement on the other
Hold
side.
on a second, Congressman.
Bring it on, Allison.
You don't think there are white extremists? You don't remember Oklahoma City? You don't think that this guy who was involved in the mosque shooting said that he was inspired by things that he read online?
So you give me 2 examples, right? And in recent time, we're going to talk about the one example. And there is radicals all over the world and here in America now that'll take up arms and do bad things. But if you want to compare this one person in the last 10 years that you can give me an example of, Oklahoma.
Okay, I have to stop there. I have to stop there because I can only let lies linger only so long before I snap. So one, I want to give props to the host. She did the best she could, and she actually did a great job, even just with 1 or 2 examples. And as we play the rest of the clip, you'll see that she didn't really have a lot of examples to give of white terrorism in the United States. Now, this conversation is stemming from Donald Trump's changing of the focus of a specific task force here in America from focusing on terrorism in general to focusing on Islamic terrorism in specific, which completely erases the reality of white terrorism in the United States of America, which white terrorism is a thing in America. And you could see this Republican representative can't, he's digging himself into a hole. First of all, he said his first gut reaction was, quote, "There is a difference," close quote. What's the difference? Please tell me. What's the difference? An extreme interpretation of the religion, Islam, you have it. In Christianity, you most certainly have it. So what's the difference? The number of people who have been killed. I mean, we can go down the list of them. We actually will go down the list of just since 2000, some of the murders, the mass murders committed by white Christian terrorists in the United States, particularly right-wing extremists in the United States. So what's the difference? 6 people killed in Quebec, 9 people killed in Charleston, South Carolina, all done. He's trying to parse a difference that does not exist. Extremism and terrorism. The only difference is that in America, the real threat, the actual threat recorded incidents, a majority have been, if you take 9/11 out of the equation, which a lot of people say, oh, well, you can't do that. But let's take 9/11 out of the equation. There have been more people killed by white extremist terrorists in the United States. Now, of course, you're going to throw back in 9/11, then you're going to try to wash, but if you take a look at the number of incidents, you're going to see that the ongoing persistent threat in the United States is white right-wing extremists. And this guy's response is telling of Republican ideology in general and white supremacy in general, where it will never equate their own violence to the violence that they want to draw the attention to, which is exactly what Donald Trump has done. Donald Trump is saying and signaling to the world that we're not going to focus on white terrorism, or white extremist terrorism, and we're going to focus only on Islamic terrorism. That's because when their very definition in their mind, when they say terrorists, they do not see white. They do not see whiteness. They see brown. They want to implicate brown people versus white people. But in America, now, if you talk about overseas, yes, the reality is different. But in the United States, the reality is white terrorism is a more persistent threat to the average American than any refugee would ever be. All right, let's listen a little bit more to this drivel and see if we can. We're going to let him make his case, and then we'll make our case. All right, let's listen in.
Oklahoma was, 20 years ago, the Oklahoma City bombing. That's different than this whole movement that's taken place through ISIS that's inspired attacks. I mean, are you going to compare the one attack up in Canada to all the death and destruction in Europe from refugees, or the attacks in the United States of America?
How about the Charleston church shooting?
But here's what
he was an extremist. He was a white extremist.
Yeah, he was. Okay.
How about that? That doesn't matter?
No, it does matter. It does matter. Look at the good things that came from it. Nikki Haley took down the Confederate flag. That was great. But you want to say, I can give you a couple examples. There's no constant thread that goes through these attacks. And you have radical Islamic terrorists and ISIS that are driving the attacks. And if you want to compare those two, maybe you can throw another one. I mean, look at Gabby Giffords.
Okay, before he goes to Gabby Giffords, because he's going to throw in some lies in there about the shooter, Jared Lee Loughner. Before he goes there, he's trying to make a distinction that does not exist. He's trying to say that there exists no ideology, a consistent interconnecting ideology that inspires these white extremist terrorists versus Islamic terrorists. And he's trying to say that Islam itself is the connecting thread with these terrorists, which, if that was the case, well, anyway, I'm not even going to go into that argument because, of course, 1.5 billion people in the world are Muslim, right? All right. And then the smallest fraction of them are actually the extremist terrorists. Well, there is a fraction of Christianity that engage in right-wing Christian terrorism. But he's trying to draw a distinction and say that there's no common thread that connects it. So he's trying to make it seem as though anytime there's a white terrorist incident, it's an isolated incident. Therefore, there's nothing that we can do about it. And we shouldn't focus on it because there's no connecting thread. But there is, right? There's an entire ideology for which Donald Trump actually benefits, right? From which he benefits. There's an entire ideology that presses or pushes this narrative that there's white genocide occurring, that there needs to be a separation of the races, that whites are superior to brown people and to black people, that whites are the pure race, and that we have to, there's this entire thread that connects all of the white terrorists that we run into. Now, are there there's always random shooters. Yes, we're not going to say that every single incident of white terrorism has been connected to white Christian terrorism and right-wing extremism, but there is a consistent thread, just as much as there's a consistent thread in Islamic terrorism. But they will never concede that point because they want it to be an attack. They want it to be a referendum against Islam, not so much the terrorism, because if it was about terrorism, they would focus on terrorism in general. All right, so now he's getting ready to go into this part, and it's a long clip, but we got to watch it because, this guy, Sean, like I said, he was on Real World, and I'm not going to say because he was on Real World, he's an idiot. I'm going to say because of what he said today on CNN, he's an idiot. But he's not smart enough, clearly not smart enough to avoid these pitfalls and to be, it could be one of two things, right? He's just not smart enough to avoid the pitfalls, or he thinks that this is a high time for him to be able to say this kind of thing because this is the type of thing that Donald Trump would say and get away with it. But unfortunately for Sean, he's no Donald Trump. All right, so let's listen to his lies, quite frankly, on the shooter of former Representative Gabby Giffords. All right, listen in.
Look at Gabby Giffords, the Marxist who took her life, a leftist guy, And now you see violence and terror in the streets all across America, burning and beating people with Donald Trump hats.
All right, so let's just talk about that. This is a consistent lie from conservatives. Jared Lee Loughner, the shooter of Gabby Giffords, was not a leftist. He identified, according to the Southern Poverty Law Center, he identified with right-wing extremists. However, they even admitted that he had a very disjointed ideology, and he intersected with right-wing extremism. However, they could not clearly identify him as a leftist or a extreme right, a part of the extreme right. To that end, this is an attempt to revise and to absolve right-wing politics of their extremism. This is all it is. And this is a standard play. This is my enemy is the only one that's guilty of anything, and we are perfect. Our politics are basically as pure as Jesus in the Immaculate Conception, right? Born pure. And this is a consistent theme with Republicans, but never so transparent have you seen this thinly veiled Islamophobic rhetoric be taken apart by a journalist who really didn't even have as many details as she needed, but she had enough to embarrass this guy. All right, let's listen in to the rest of this drivel.
The violence you have to look at. You're trying to use some examples of the right. So where do we go? The left. Wait, hold on a second. The left has to say violence is wrong. Whether we look, and if love and peace from, as you brought up in San Bernardino, why do we look at Berkeley, where people get beat? Thank you. People that get beat up for wearing a Donald Trump hat, "Make America Great Again" hat again, or they get kicked, and stores get vandalized, and they burn and they beat. Where does the left and CNN and MSNBC stand up and go, you know what, this is wrong? If we're going to have peace in our hearts,
and
we're going to inspire
when
the
Muslims
left.
are attacked as well, and when swastikas are
I don't know what a
painted
swastika
onto
is,
buildings.
but
We've been talking about
Allison,
all of it.
come on.
Why are you using isolated? Why do you think that when it's a white terrorist, it's an isolated incident?
So what I'm saying is, you have a cell, a heart, a beat of ISIS that's inspiring people around the world. And do you deny that? That's going to Europe and come to America,
right?
Whether it's lone wolves. And so what's the heartbeat of the attack that you referenced in the mosque, or what happened in Charleston?
Extremism,
is there a common theme that
hatred,
runs?
white supremacy.
Can we vet that? How should we vet that to keep ourselves safe? I'll join you in that effort. What do we do?
Do you not think it was white supremacy? This is what the shooters said it was.
Okay, I gotta pause there. This is what the shooter said it was. Like, this is low hanging fruit, and it shows you the bereftness of this argument, right? But there is a common thread. Common thread is white supremacy, hatred of minorities, Islamophobia, just hatred of just blackness. They hate blackness. You know, they clearly said with their own mouths, Dylan Roof in particular, why he was doing this. He wanted to start a race war, but there's a complete silence, a void of any conversation about right-wing extremism in the United States, even to the point now where Donald Trump is not going to focus on white terrorism. He's only going to focus on Islamic terrorism because, as we all know, there's no white terrorism in the United States, despite it being the #1 threat compared to refugees. All right, there's a little bit more, and again, bear with me because I just want you to experience the utter idiocy of whatever it is, Sean Duffy. Sounds as ridiculous as his name. Here we go.
Yeah, it's horrible. So what should we do? I mean, I'll join you. What do we do on the white supremacy front to make sure we don't have?
Well, what you can do is you can ban white supremacists. You know, let's focus at a minimum, right? At a minimum, what you can do is talk to your president and put the focus of this committee, not independent, but of this committee, put the focus back on terrorism in general instead of just Islamic terrorism. That's step number one.
Another attack like Charleston. I am with you on that, Allison.
Speak out about it, crack down on it, talk about it as extreme violence as much as we talk about all of the other terrorism that you call radical Islamic terrorism.
So let's crack down on ISIS. Let's crack down on the 7 terror countries that are riddled with terrorists, and give Donald Trump 90 days to 120 days. Give him a pause to make sure he can keep us safe. Because you know what? If we could have vetted that guy.
All right, that's enough. That's enough. If you could have vetted, you wouldn't have, clearly. So, all right. Here's the thing. I think the journal, and I can't remember her name, but she did a great. She just simply brought up enough examples to completely blow his argument out of the water. But she did not have a definitive list of the white extremist terrorism, particularly right-wing terrorism that exists in the United States. And I just want to highlight, there was a great article by Slate.com. Ben Mathis Lilly, he compiled a list of terrorism in the United States, of white terrorism in the United States. I think back to 94. But I just want to start in 2000 because there's so many examples just since 2000 to completely undermine everything that this congressman said, and not just this idiotic congressman, but also your president, the president of the United States, who doesn't feel like it's necessary to focus on white terrorism. It really is just antithetical. It's completely counter, rather, to the evidence. So April 28th, 2000, an unemployed immigration attorney named Richard Bonhammer, who believed non-white immigration should be banned, shoots and kills 5 people in the Pittsburgh area. And again, this is straight from Slate.com. Ben Mathis Lilly. December 8th, 2003, Steve Bixby kills 2 police officers. May 24th, 2004, Wade and Christopher Lay, they shoot and kill a bank security guard in Tulsa, Oklahoma. January 21st, 2009, neo-Nazi Keith Luke rapes and kills an immigrant from Cape Verde in Brockton, Massachusetts. April 4th, 2009, Richard Popolowski, a frequent poster on the white supremacist site Stormfront. He shoots and kills 3 Pittsburgh police officers. And if you want to ask about the consistent theme, go to Stormfront. Just take a day and go to Stormfront, and you will see the ideology that connects all of this extreme right-wing terrorism. May 30th, 2009, Shauna Ford, Albert Gaxilio, and Jason Bush kill a Latino man and his 9-year-old daughter in Arizona. May 31st, 2009, Scott Reuter kills Dr. George Tiller. This is one of the most famous cases that we know of, who was an abortion provider in Wichita, Kansas. And he killed him because of extremist right-wing ideology. May 20th, 2010, father and son pair named Jerry and Joseph Kane, who conducted seminars about how sovereign citizens movement, an extremist movement. He conducted seminars about how they can evade debt. He killed 2 West Memphis, Arkansas police officers. September 26, 2011, white supremacist David Pedersen and Holly Ann Grigsby. They kill Grigsby's father and stepmother in Washington, in the state of Washington. August 5th, 2012, there's another, 6 people were killed by Michael Page. August 16th, 2012, the Sovereign Citizen Movement member Brian Smith and Kyle Jukel, they killed 2 Louisiana sheriff deputies. September 4th, 2012, April 3rd, 2014, June 8th, 2014, September 12th, 2014, July 24th, 2015, all examples of white supremacist extreme right-wing terrorism in the United States. Now, give me a list of refugees who have committed this amount of terrorism inside of the United States. Give me a list. You can't.